In the 9th century, deep within the misty mountains of Sichuan, China, a group of Taoist alchemists gathered over a roaring furnace with a goal that had absolutely nothing to do with warfare. They were trying to achieve immortality. Convinced that combining specific minerals could grant eternal life, they spent years mixing, heating, and experimenting with mystical recipes passed down through generations. But during one fateful experiment, they mixed 3 volatile ingredients: saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur. Instead of granting everlasting life, the mixture violently exploded, singeing their beards and burning their laboratory to the ground. Historical accounts of burned workshops and singed faces tell us everything we need to know about that initial encounter. Nobody in that room was trying to invent a weapon. They named the mysterious substance Huo Yao, meaning fire medicine. A slightly embarrassing title for what would ultimately become the most destructive chemical discovery in human history, birthing every gun, cannon, and firearm on Earth. But how exactly did humanity transform a failed elixir into a world-shaping weapon? The answer takes us through bamboo spears, terrifying medieval sieges, and an accidental continental migration that permanently altered global power. To understand this transformation, we must look at the simple chemistry behind that explosive accident. The mixture combined potassium nitrate, known as saltpeter, with charcoal and sulfur in roughly a 75 to 15 to 10 ratio by weight. The saltpeter functioned as a rapid oxidizer, releasing massive amounts of oxygen when heated, and feeding an extremely fast combustion reaction that produced a sudden, violent expansion of gas. That expanding gas is the secret behind everything gunpowder would ever accomplish. Yet in its earliest documented uses, gunpowder was not weaponized at all. It was used for fireworks, smoke signals, and grand festival displays. For generations, ordinary people across China encountered this substance purely as entertainment and spectacle. Everything changed between the 10th and 12th centuries during the Song dynasty, when military commanders realized its terrifying potential. Engineers developed the Huo Yao, or fire lance, a length of bamboo packed with gunpowder and strapped to the end of a spear. During the siege of Dian in 1132, defenders unleashed these flame-spewing weapons against attackers climbing the walls, scorching enemy ranks and inflicting massive psychological shock. Soldiers who had spent their entire lives training with blades suddenly faced enemies who could project fire itself, creating a wave of panic that often broke sieges before physical weapons even made contact. Once gunpowder proved its worth on the battlefield, innovation accelerated rapidly. Weaponsmiths began stuffing pottery shards and iron pellets into the bamboo tubes, shifting the weapon's purpose from pure intimidation to launching penetrating projectiles from a distance, the foundational concept underlying every modern firearm. However, bamboo tubes had a fatal limitation. They could not withstand high explosive pressure without splitting apart and injuring the soldier holding them. To overcome this danger, Chinese craftsmen learned to cast thick bronze tubes strong enough to safely contain the blast, giving birth to the hand cannon. By the 13th century, metal hand cannons were launching solid projectiles across China, while scaled-up siege engines like the thunderclap bomb destroyed fortifications once thought unassailable. When Mongol forces invaded China in the 1200s, they experienced this explosive power firsthand during the defense of Qiong in 1232. Instead of rejecting the technology, the Mongols absorbed it into their military machine. As Mongol conquerors expanded across Eurasia, they acted as an accidental delivery system, spreading gunpowder weaponry into the Islamic world and toward Europe far faster than peaceful trade routes ever could. When gunpowder technology reached Western Europe in the late 13th century, it landed in a political landscape that it would permanently transform. Early European hand cannons were crude, slow to reload, and difficult to aim, essentially iron cylinders mounted on wooden poles. Firing required a soldier to hold the weapon with one hand while manually applying a smoldering ember to a touch hole with the other. Yet, despite their crudeness, these early firearms shattered centuries of feudal power. Mounted knights clad in expensive steel armor, the dominant force on medieval battlefields, found themselves vulnerable to heavy lead projectiles launched by minimally trained foot soldiers. Castle walls that had stood for centuries crumbled under heavy cannon fire, forcing military architects to abandon traditional vertical fortresses in favor of low, angled starforts specifically designed to deflect explosive impacts. Despite these tactical victories, firearms remained plagued by a massive design flaw. They relied on an open, slow-burning match that went out in bad weather, ruined stealth at night, and required constant manual care. The breakthrough arrived in the late 15th century with the matchlock mechanism, which attached a curved, trigger-operated clamp to hold the burning cord. Pulling the trigger automatically lowered the lit match into the powder, allowing a soldier to hold and aim the weapon with both hands. In 1543, Portuguese traders introduced matchlocks to Japan, where local smiths refined them into exquisite Tanegashima rifles. Meanwhile, China re-imported these advanced matchlocks to counter northern border incursions. But the ultimate revolution occurred in the early 17th century with the invention of the flintlock. By striking a spring-loaded piece of flint against steel to generate instant sparks directly into the pan, the flintlock eliminated open flames entirely. When combined with the socket bayonet, which locked around the outside of the barrel so soldiers could fire with the blade attached, infantrymen no longer needed separate pikemen for protection. A single soldier could now act as both a shooter and a spearman, forever changing the face of military tactics. By the 19th century, the invention of the percussion cap eliminated loose priming powder altogether, paving the way for modern repeating rifles and rapid warfare. Looking back across 8 centuries, the epic evolution of firearms was not the result of a single mastermind, but an accumulation of accidental discoveries, incremental refinements, and global exchanges. The lethal weapon that dismantled empires, redesigned architecture, and conquered continents began as a simple mistake made by alchemists who were only trying to live forever. If you liked this video, then you must like and subscribe to our First Fire channel. Here we share the real and true stories of ancient humans.